If you're looking for a clean and functional login screen which you can add to your web page in a few short minutes, then stick with me and I'll show you how. Hi, this is episode 7 in the JavaScript Bushido series where I teach QooxDoo programming. You can follow the link below this video to get directly to the code on my WebOS where you can program along or get the source code for your own projects. Now, why did I choose PHP for the backend? PHP stands for Personal Homepage and was created by Rasmus Lerdorf in 1994. It is a server-side scripting language which can mix HTML and JavaScript and dynamically generate web pages. Its widespread usage stems from the ease of use. Facebook is one of the largest companies to use PHP. Since the PHP scripts are running on the server side, they do not expose passwords or other security details which could be used to cause harm. Now obviously you can implement very insecure backend logic if you like to get attacked, for example using honeypots. There are plenty of PHP libraries to choose from, but in order to keep things simple here I chose the following single file version as a starting point. I would not recommend using this simple class in production, but it allows us to see the basic functioning and handling of login and session management. And as always, you will find links to the code and the development area below this video. So let's jump to it. So here we are with a beautiful background image this time around, and as I said before, we are going to work on creating a login form. And this one, what we want to use is we are going to get this the PHP backend from GitHub, from this URL. And this is the class that we are going to use in our project today. So let's go back here, and then the other thing is I'm also going to upload a image. So let's get to it. So let's first upload an image here, and let me select this. And since I already have the PHP form locally, I simply upload this as well, close it, and then we can take a look at this PHP code here. Let me position this, and alright, so we're set. So this PHP form is very basic, and the reason why I chose this one over any of the other millions of possible solutions you have down there, it's everything everything is self-contained within a single page, which makes it very easy to explain and to go with implement and use in your projects. I would encourage you to look around and see if you find a better PHP backend, or if you want to use a different backend technology like, for example, NodeJS. You can go ahead and do this as well. This is just here to make sure that everything works. Basically, when PHP starts up, or when you start a PHP script, we're going to pass in the attributes as the type, username, password, email, and the flag, remember, from the front end. And we can have either types of login, logout, forgot, sign up, check, or new DB. So the check will simply check if we are currently logged in. New DB is for the initial creation of the database, which is required. And then the sign up is self-explanatory. You want to sign up as a new user. Forgot is being called if you forgot your email. Log out when you want to log out, and log in when you want to log in. So let's get started with the login. So the way that we do this, we are going to create a new class. Actually, it's a HTML form, and this time we don't want the HTML, but what we want to do is we want to use the QooxDoo all-included form, and we want to call this here, say login.html, and then save this. And then what happened here is that we're creating a HTML document with everything that is needed. We have, if I refresh this here, we have populated 2 directories which contain the QooxDoo script here and the resource files that are required. This file is included here in your project, and then the last step that we do here, in usually in a normal QooxDoo class, this code would be in a separate file, would be called application.js, and what it is, it instantiates, or you build your own application. This is the main function which is called when the application is created, and then here we create a button and we display the button. And this final line here is important because it tells the QooxDoo framework that the login.application, this one here, is going to be our main application. So we should be able to start this here. Let's test it. We run it. Let's wait until everything is loaded. And here's our first button. And welcome to QooxDoo. So everything seems to be working quite nicely. The other thing to quickly note here is that the background here is also written in QooxDoo, but this is all handled inside of an iframe, so we don't have a global namespace collision happening here. Moving right along, what we have to create now is the actual login form. So we're going to here we're going to leave it at JavaScript, and in this case I want to create a QooxDoo window. So I create this, and let's call this login window.js. Let's create this here. This will create a standard window, and where we build the window widgets, and then we display this. So we could display this here inside of our little environment here, but what we want to do is we want to actually include it in the login.html. So let's do this here. And let's include login window.js. Save this here. And then what we want to do here is to actually create var login equals new. And then we're going to take this string, create this class, and then the last thing, login show, and we can get rid of these lines of code. Save this and let's have another look at it. So here we go, we created our window inside of the iframe, and if I do this a little bit larger here, you can see this is a standard window, and you can cancel out and close it. So we're good to go. So since we're currently looking at a window, which is not necessarily what we actually want, let's go ahead and change a couple of things around. Let me tell you what I'm doing here. So first we're changing the screen, the login screen, we make it a little bit smaller. Then the next thing is we determine what the top and the left corner of the window is, and then we place it to the top and left here. So this left is this left variable, and this top is this top variable. So in this case we centered the login window inside the view. The other thing that we want to do is instead of using a window, what we are going to do is actually use container.composite. So we're going to extend this class instead of a window because we don't need the frames and the borders at all. And we want to call this login build login, and we simply call this build login as well, login. Next we are going to replace all of this code down here because we want to create a login form and not a couple of buttons. So let me do this, let me save, and let's go through it. So the first thing we create is a semi-transparent background which has an opacity of 0.6 and a dark gray background. Then we create a font which we're going to use on this label. And the reason we create a font here is because we want to make it a little bit larger. And this label simply says login. And the other thing we want to do is we want to have the color to be white. In order for this to happen, we need to set the label set rich flag to true, and then the label displays it actually as a HTML text rather than as straight text. Next we're going to create a white line, so we create a widget which has a height of 2 and the background color is white, and we position it accordingly. Moving right on to the text field and the password. One of the nice things that you can see here is that you can set a placeholder which shows up inside of the field, text field then, or the password field then. And finally we create the checkbox, wanting to ask the user if we should remember him logging into this site. So the other thing is we're actually setting these attributes so we can later access it and retrieve the information. Then we create a forgot password link here, and that looks very much like an HTML link. And there are multiple ways so I can do this in QooxDoo. I chose to go that route. So again, we're setting this text. We're using HTML to set the color to white. In this case, I use actually the word white. We get the child control label. Remember, this is an atom, and the atom has a text and has a label and an icon, child control. And then on that label we set the attribute rich to true, and we allow it to scroll to Y in order for us to leverage the whole width of the label itself. Then we have the mouse over and mouse out functions, where we simply underline the text here of the button of the forgot password, or we remove that underline when the mouse moves out. So basically it behaves just like a normal link in HTML, and then once we click on it we call this forgot function, which we have yet to implement. The last two things that we create here is the login button and the sign up button, and for this we have to create a new function up here. And here is the function body. So we are going to pass the attributes text, color, the width, and the callback function and its context. So for the button we create a simple button. Again, we want to change the text color to white. Then we get the label control to set rich, so this actually takes effect. Then we have we add a listener once. Once the button appears for the first time, we set the background color for the first time, and then we have the mouse over and mouse out functions. Now the reason why we call this function appear is that once the button appears, this DOM element is actually available. If we use this function beforehand, if we call this function on this button before it's actually being created by the QooxDoo framework, this DOM element would be null and we would fail this function here completely. And the final callback that's handled here in this create button function is to actually call the callback function back in its own context. So we pass the context here to this callback function. Now here in this context we call the callback function with this pointer, which is actually the context pointer. Now cool, with so many callbacks going on, we actually have to implement the business logic behind them. So once you click a button, you call one of those three functions. Now remember, we have the forget link, which looks like a link. Then we have the sign up button, which opens the sign up window. And then we have the actual login functionality. So forget and sign up are basically the same. What they do is they simply destroy this dialog or this window, this login window, and then they open the forgot window, and here the same with the sign up window. Now if we're looking at the login, however, something else happens. So we first get the attributes that the user entered, name, password, and remember. Then we do a very basic validation here. Obviously this can be improved, and then we build the string. This string is being passed on to this PHP form, and remember, for the PHP form we pass in the question mark followed by the attribute equals value, and then if we add another attribute, it's the same spiel. We add the ampersand, username equals, and then name, ampersand, password equals, password, and so on. So, and this is then being sent to the backend, and the backend, the PHP script on the server side, can then decode these pieces of information. So we do this here by using the request XHR class, and this class internally will create an XML HTTP request, send it to the backend, basically calling this class. And what we do with this, in this case, is we have the type login, so we are going to try to log into this backend. If the response is coming back and contains true, which means the login succeeded, then we're going to actually open the main application window and we destroy this login window. Otherwise, we display a quick alert and telling the user that the login has failed. And this is it. So we could now go ahead and test it out, but before we do this, remember we have to create these windows here first. And what we're going to do is, first let's save this. We're going back here and creating a new class. Again, this is going to be a QooxDoo window class, and in this case we call it application window .js. Save this, and this should be okay. And then we're going to the login window and we'll click the play button, and we can see if we have some luck here, logging in something, and then log in, and we get told that we could not currently log in. Now let's go ahead and see if we can sign up, and for this we are creating a new dialog here. So let's close this here first, but in order to speed things up, let me just create this here and in the background, and then come back once I have all the classes in place. Okay, so I'm back, and what I have done in the meantime was to create these windows. This is a simple application window. When you execute the logout function, it will call the logout here. And I added a new function to the application, which I will show you in a bit. So we have to get the application, and then this new function RPC will actually do all the calls to the backend. And if the call is successful, we go back to the login window as we have logged out. Then the sign up window handles all the functionality of signing up. And again, here we're going to use the application the .rpc function. And the same thing is for the forgot window. So all of this functionality has been implemented. So the last thing that I want to take a look at is the main login page. So we expanded it. Previously we had only the login window included, and we now include the other three windows, or the other three JavaScript libraries here as well. And then in the main function, what we added is a nice background. So we get the decorator, we create a new decorator, and then we set the background image to the image we want to set it, and we tell it to scale it to 100% of the background, and then we set the decorator to the root. And then here we call again the RPC function to check if the user is currently logged in. If he's logged in, display the application window, otherwise display the login window. And then finally, here's the RPC function, and what I did is I collected all the other calls from going towards the backend into this one single function where we call the PHP file, and then based on the string that we pass in, we extract the response, and then we call back the calling function as we did so many times before, and then finally we send the RPC XHR, and that's it. So let's see what happens if we start this guy up. So here's your login screen, and I have taken the liberty to create a user account here, and log in. Here's the Hello World application, and if I close this here, start it again, the application window comes right up, and I can log out, and we're back to the login screen. So if I start this again, see, we're back to the login screen. The forgot password should then eventually handle sending an email, and the sign up form functions so that you can test it out and sign up with a new account, and then once you signed up, you can go back to the login form and actually log in. If you found some value in this video, I would encourage you to subscribe to this channel or visit my blog to find more information about this project and many other interesting advanced projects like this. Also, please let me know if you're interested in a certain topic which I can pick up in a future episode. Thanks so much for watching and hope to see you back soon.